Welcome in the latest episode of Five on the Floor on the Five Reasons Sports Network. Thanks for finding us on your favorite podcast app. We're on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Podbean, Spotify, and more. Also, during the week, Monday through Friday, we're on Dash Radio on the Nothing But Net channel. Also, we've got the Five Reasons YouTube channel, getting close to that 12,000 subscriber mark. Make sure you check out the post up on 5R after every Heat game hosted by Royal Shepherd with Ariel Gadd, Brian, and the others. Also, we do Before Floor before every game. That's an hour before every game. I host that one. Greg is on there as well with Brady, Jonathan, and Ricky. Also, check out the great sponsors of the Five Reasons Sports Network. So many of these are local. This is the only one that will thoroughly kick your ass, though. It's F45 in Cooper City. F45 in Cooper City. If you haven't tried this yet, you have to. It will get you in shape, trust me, and it's inexpensive as well. You got to check it out again. It's F45. Now, this is the one in Cooper City. They're all individually owned. This is the one that Five Reasons is working with. We know everybody that's there, and I've done a bunch of these workouts. We're actually going to have a workout with some of our listeners here coming up. So if you're interested, it'll be free. DM me. If you live kind of in the central to West Broward area, it's a perfect way for you to try it, get started. The workouts burn up to 500 calories per session. They help you drop the quarantine 15. Again, they got month-to-month, no contract memberships, and it's available for as low as $8 a session with discounts for teachers, nurses, military, and first responders. This is not a regular gym. It's a community that will help keep you engaged and motivated. They've basically got a screen. You got to follow everything that they're doing, but also the trainers will go around, and if you're sort of uncoordinated like I am, they'll help you get to the right activity. So they'll work directly with you while sort of giving you a template for what you should do to keep moving. So again, it's a 45-minute workout. It's called F45. It's in Cooper City. You can call them at 954-745-4517. They'll get you on the schedule. 954-745-4517 and mention Five Reasons. And now, tonight's episode.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5
on the floor.
Welcome to Five on the Floor, a daily show on the Miami Heat and the NBA featuring Ethan Skolnick with Alex Toledo and Greg Sylvander, part of the Five Reasons Sports Network.
All right, Ethan Skolnick back here on Five on the Floor after the Miami Heat beat the Cleveland Cavaliers in Cleveland, go to 4 games over 500 for the second time this season. The last time that it happened was after they beat the Cavs. Of course, there have been, some obstacles along the way since. They've had trouble getting past this 4 game over 500 mark. They needed this win tonight, particularly with what Boston did the night before, coming back from 32 down to beat the Spurs with Tatum scoring 60. Charlotte also wins. The Heat play the Hornets on Sunday night with LaMelo Ball and Heat killer Malik Monk back. Both guys played tonight. Ball had 13 points. Monk had 11 off the bench. Here's tonight's floor plan, joined by Alex Toledo. At some point, I've got Greg Sylvander here. We're going to go over this game briefly, and then we're going to have a little bit of fun in the second half of the episode because it's going to be based on what happened tonight. Greg, the Heat win this game tonight. Look, this is an awful team that they're playing. Okay, awful. And also shorthanded. But no hero. Still no Oladipo. We know that. But really kind of slow nights from Bam and Jimmy, particularly early offensively. I mean, Jimmy didn't have to play at the end of the game, which was one of the positives of tonight. But really, this win was on the back of 3 undrafted players. And we should be accustomed to this because this is kind of how the Heat have operated for a little while. But Duncan Robinson with 5 threes, now 500 threes in his career. He's got actually 501, but for 500, the fastest in NBA history to do that as an undrafted player, as any player, but he did it as an undrafted player. Kendrick Nunn, another 20-plus point performance, consistent. He's been terrific lately. I saw the stat that they put up, Greg. He's shooting 50% and 40% from 3 in his last 6 now, in the fourth quarter while playing the entire fourth quarter. He's kind of got the old Tyler Hero role. And then Max Strus gets the hero minutes instead of Gabe Vincent tonight. And he had 14 in the first half, was taking charges, getting to the rim, and setting people up. Let's get to the significance of tonight, and then we'll kind of talk about what we're going to do in the second half of the episode.
Yeah, it's interesting. There's a part of me that wants to say it's the Cavs and they're, eliminated from the playoffs and, they're banged up and half of their bench was out and, all that kind of stuff. So it's not necessarily that impressive of a victory, other than the fact that I think we all went into this, and rightfully so, you don't know what Heat team's going to show up. So the fact that they not only covered the spread, as we talked about on the pregame show, but 124, 107 is huge. 50% from three on 36 attempts. I mean, like, that's the kind of shooting that they needed to get back to. And then the other big one here was that the rebounding was relatively close. I mean, 39-37, Cleveland got the advantage there, but that shows that I guess what I like about this game is that it started out and it looked bleak. And there were moments where I was like, oh no, like this is one of those games that, another one, like here it comes again. And instead the Heat regrouped and they created some separation, and that's not something that they've done all season. So we can't discount that, even though it is just the Cavs.
Well, they survived the random scrub Heat killer stuff tonight. I mean, I noticed early on that Eric Reed was calling Dean Wade by his full name tonight instead of the unnamed Cavalier. I'm guessing maybe somebody said something to Eric about that after the first time that it happened, because he made sure to say his full name the entire time. Last time, I guess he didn't want to, it was kind of a joke and he didn't want to confuse him with Dwayne Wade and all the rest of that stuff. But Dean Wade was going off on him early. And also I kind of had, I guess, because I mocked Kevin Love in a tweet and I have this effect. Kevin Love actually had a pretty big game tonight. He actually decided to care. And so, I can never pronounce Osman's name, but basically, he played much better in the first half than he's typically played this season. They didn't have Garland. They're without some other players. They really seem to be a going nowhere organization right now. I don't really know what they're building with. I like Sexton, but I mean, there's not a hell of a lot else there. So look, it's not an overly impressive victory by any means, except for the fact, like you said, that we're accustomed to the worst from this Heat team against bad teams. And they allowed, a ton of threes and they still won the game. They didn't get a great Jimmy game. They still won the game. They didn't get a dominant Bam game. They still won the game. And again, they did it with undrafted players. And I don't think we should overlook that as we bring Alex in here. And again, second half of the episode, we're going to get into this in a little more depth. We shouldn't overlook the fact that the Heat have continued, in the last couple of years to get more out of undrafted guys than a lot of other organizations get out of drafted guys. I mean, Cleveland has been drafting at the top of the draft now pretty much, the first time when LeBron wasn't there and now the second time when LeBron wasn't there. And they didn't find a Duncan Robinson who's made 500 threes faster than anybody else. They didn't find a Kendrick Nunn and pluck him away from another team like the way the Heat did to give them serviceable guard play. They just keep drafting guys and they keep sucking and drafting more guys. Alex, I want to go to you on this. We recap the game, but just quickly here because we want to get to something else tonight. Just your thoughts.
So I was, like you said, kind of going along with your theme is that the rest of the team showed out tonight, which has kind of been something that's rare this season, is that usually it's Jimmy and Bam kind of carrying the team and having to take them that extra level, having to take them home in the fourth quarter. And although there was times where they were giving up the lead, they were mostly in control tonight. And honestly, like you're talking about the undrafted players, you got 18, 17 shots made between Duncan and Kendrick tonight on about 24 attempts total. Like what they're getting out of those two is pretty crazy. And it seems like the way that both of them are headed, it seems like we're headed to a path where the Heat end up trying to retain both of them in the offseason.
That is the big question going forward, right? And I polled this tonight because I think if you had polled this a month ago, it would have flipped the other direction completely. Would you give Kendrick Nunn $30 million over 3 years? It's polling 88% yes. If you polled this a month ago, particularly after the Oladipo trade, right?
Oh,
you thought you were getting guard, it would be 90% no.
Correct.
And in fact, the response to the polling tonight was basically like, that's too low. Christian Wood just got the biggest contract for an undrafted player. What was the number? Is the biggest contract in NBA history.
With 3 years, 41 million, I think is what I found.
Okay, well, there are Heat fans who think that Nunn's going to get paid more than that. So it's interesting and a little bit frightening for the Heat how that has flipped, but you have to take it. I mean, here's Kendrick's last 7 games. You ready? The Heat are 6-1. He's averaging 35 minutes. He's averaging 19.9 points, 3.9 rebounds, 3.3 assists, 1 steal with 1 turnover. Okay, he's got better than the 3-to-1 assist to turnover ratio. shooting 54% from the field, 50% from three on 7.7 attempts, and he's 100% from the line. I mean, he's got 54, 50, and 100 splits while averaging 20, playing the entire fourth quarter and just one turnover. Literally, if a player on another team was posting those kind of numbers, every Heat fan, including our friend Chef Trilly, will be posting jersey swaps, right?
Yeah. No, I mean, and so that's where we have to say that Kendrick Nunn is earning a little bit of this reconsideration, where you're seeing Heat fans completely go in the other direction. I think that kind of speaks to the highs and lows of the Kendrick Nunn experience. And I guess you'll just have to think about it as the mid-level is what, 10 or $11 million per year. And that is, basically the league average. So is Kendrick Nunn playing better than a league average player? You have to say yes.
He's playing like a league average starter at guard.
Exactly. So at that point, I think that the other key element here, and I know we're going to flip the script and go in another direction, but I think it's important to point out for Heat fans that the Heat have his restricted free agency rights in the way that they can have his cap hold and then come circle back to him and they can match any offer. So don't get too worried about in terms of the Heat not being able to afford Kendrick Nunn. If they want to keep Kendrick Nunn, they'll be able to. It'll essentially be a situation where he can go out, get an offer sheet from another team and set his market value. And then the Heat can say yay or nay, but they'll have the opportunity.
Yeah, but Greg, you're bringing back bad memories. There's some PTSD on this, because if you look at 5 years ago, that's what Tyler Johnson did. He went out and he set his market, right? And
they're not going to make that mistake again.
Okay, but here's the thing. They threw out a contract, which actually 4 years, $50 million. Kendrick Nunn's a better player than Tyler Johnson, in my view. And 4 years, 50. And the problem with that deal was not necessarily that it was 12 and a half a year, because at the time it looked kind of like market rate for Tyler Johnson. You're talking about a guy who had emerged as a pretty good 6th, 7th man type with some starting capability. The problem was the way the deal was structured. A team could also structure a deal that makes the Heat uncomfortable again. And they endured 5 years of criticism basically for the Tyler Johnson deal. So we're headed towards that direction, but we're going to have some fun in the second half of the episode, because again, they just did beat Cleveland. I don't want to overplay this too much. We don't want to spend too much time on it.
Can I say one thing about Kendrick? Cause I feel like I'm always hating on him, it feels like I'm always talking down on him is, we talked about the defensive improvement. He had an awesome defensive game tonight, right? And I think that's huge for him, because although he's not like adding necessarily new offensive moves, like we talked about how he's polished his game, tonight he was out there getting deflections and like reading the offense and timing passes. And that's something that I think you learn from playing with Jimmy and Trevor and Bam. And when you zone like that, the way they did tonight, and just kind of figuring it out with more time. And it's just great to see, like, the more reps and time he's gotten, he's polished the defensive end as much as the offensive end. Even though he's not a great defender yet, he's definitely not nearly as much of a negative as he was last season.
Well, and also offensively, we talked about, the decision making, and he seems to be playing at his own pace now. And he was not before. He has slowed things down, or maybe the game has slowed down. There was one sequence where he lost the ball, he gathered it, he still figured out a way to get to his offhand to finish. Like that kind of stuff was not happening before. It was just purely him getting to spots and making shots. Now, if you take him away the first time, he's figuring out other options. He's become a very, very complete offensive player. I mean, not complete in the way he's going to get you 10 assists on a consistent basis, but there are other elements of his game he can go to, and that was not the case. All right, second half of the episode, though, we're going to put it into some context. Greg and I were kind of shooting this back and forth during the game because, again, they were playing Cleveland. The Heat have had a long history of undrafted projects that have panned out. Where do Kendrick Nunn and Duncan Robinson now fit on that list? We're going to talk about that next, the three of us. Before we do, I want to tell you about another great sponsor, 5 Reasons Sports Network. That's Manscaped. You got to go to manscaped.com. You got to use that code 5RSN, 5RSN. You get 20% off and free shipping. So 20% off and free shipping. It's 5RSN. Everybody knows that Manscaped has the perfect package 3.0 for all your below the waist grooming needs, but they didn't stop there. They now got a new refined cologne signature scent. by Manscaped. So make sure you get that too. It's the perfect complement to the collection. I love saying this: light, approachable, and genuinely in all the right ways. So make sure that you check it out. Again, to go to manscaped.com, use the code 5RSN. That's 5RSN. That's the way that you're going to get your 20% off. The tagline: your balls and your body will thank you. All right, let's get to it. All right, we're going to create 2 undrafted 5-man teams. Okay, 2 undrafted 5-man teams. We got to fill out the positions correctly here, though, guys. Okay, so we can go one of us and then the next. Alex, some of this maybe before your birth. So we're gonna bring it into this slowly. But Greg and I
need a list.
We're feeling old. Well, we did throw this back and forth on the thread tonight. But let's go to it. I'm gonna have the first pick for the first team, and I'm going to put a player in. I don't know if you guys want to get a notepad. I don't know if people still use notepads. I still do. All right, so let's go to it. My first pick for undrafted players in Heat history. People are going to realize how many of these the Heat have found over the years during the Riley era. Okay, although there's one that predates Pat, but then Pat hired him, so ultimately it's okay. I know, Greg, you're smiling. You know who I'm talking about. Okay. Number 1 draft pick, first team. We're going to start him at the 4. Udonis Haslem.
Shocker.
I think we would all agree most impactful undrafted player in Heat history, correct?
No doubt.
There's
no doubt.
Okay. So UD's 1. Plus, if we didn't say that, he would kill us. All right. Let's fill out another position on the first team. Greg, go.
You know what? Call me crazy. I'm putting Duncan Robinson right there.
At the 3?
Yep.
I mean, it's hard to argue.
Or
with
the 2. You know what I mean? Like the way
okay.
We're playing positionless basketball these days. But
they were when
3.
Haslem was brought in 2003. But that's okay. All right. But Duncan Robinson. I don't think, Alex, any argument. Duncan Robinson.
No, definitely no argument. Those were the 2 guys I would have picked if I would have had one of those 2 picks. And Duncan is so damn good at what he does, man. And he's over here breaking records and keeping on pace for made threes with Steph Curry. And he's having an unbelievable season. So I think Duncan just has to go up there because it just seems like he's going to be this good for the rest of his career. I don't see why not. So my pick, just going off of all these different guys, and it is a lot. I'm looking at this text thread here that you're talking about.
You're using Google right now is what you're doing, but that's okay. No, that's fine. I can't see you.
No, you guys put a good amount of names on this text thread, and to me, the one that stands out to most to be the 3rd pick is Bruce Bowen, just because knowing the career that he had outside of the Heat and the player that he turned out to be was kind of like the pioneer for what everybody wanted from a 3-and-D quote unquote guy, and he was just so damn good on defense, right? I just think just from ability and, being able to have a long career, being that guy, probably Bruce Bowen.
I think that's fair. I think you can, the fact that he won championships after too, in another situation with the Spurs. One of Pat's biggest public relations mistakes was when he called Bruce Bowen the 29th best starting small forward in the league offensively right prior to his free agency, and Bruce left for a minimum contract, I believe, for 3 years with the Spurs, and ended up winning 2 titles during that period of time. Not the best move for Pat. It sort of rivaled the whole, do you have the guts type thing that didn't go over so well, or revealing Savannah's pregnancy at a press conference. That probably was number 1. I don't know. The hidden agendas thing also, but LeBron was gone by then, and it was kind of praise of Dragic. So, all right, I'm with you on that one. I think Bowen. I think there's a couple of other guys we could have gone with for a swing spot who we're going to get to here in a second, but you need a point guard for the first team. And I'm going to go with someone who's gotten unfairly disparaged over the years, basically because his agent, he's been praised in some ways because his agent Bill Duffy didn't sign the papers on a contract. People forget that Anthony Carter, before everybody kind of got upset at him because he didn't develop as a shooter, was a really important part of a Heat team that swept Detroit in the first round without Tim Hardaway. AC stepped in. I covered that series. AC stepped in, played really well, made a huge shot against the Knicks over the backboard at Madison Square Garden. I, again, was sitting baseline. I don't think it should have counted, but it did count. And AC was a good player who then has stayed as a coach. And I think Anthony Carter, I'm going to have him run my team. I don't want him to shoot a lot, but you've got Duncan Robinson. Bruce Bowen's became pretty much a knockdown corner 3 shooter. So you have enough shooting. So I'm going with AC as my starting point guard.
So I like how we're doing this, how we're actually building a team here. So we've got Anthony Carter and Bruce Bowen and Duncan Robinson. So we've got lots of defense and 3-point shooting. We've got UD with more defense. So I'm going to go with maybe he wouldn't have been first team in our hearts necessarily, but on this particular team, he would be the perfect big man. And that is Ike Austin. Did not spend a lot of time in Miami, but was an undrafted find behind Alonzo Mourning for Pat Riley and really emerged, was a great player when Alonzo Mourning went down. I believe it was with the patella stuff back then. And just was awesome. The Heat wanted to keep him. They couldn't. They knew they couldn't afford him and traded him for Brent Barry, and that didn't work out. I don't think they've ever done that again, but I'm going with Ike Austin as the man in the middle.
Yeah, I think that's fair. There's a couple of other bigs that you could look at. I think one of them will make second team here, but that's fair. But let's just look at it. So this is the starters. Right now, we don't have Kendrick Nunn on the first team, although I think you're getting closer to making a case here. Anthony Carter, Bruce Bowen, Duncan Robinson, Udonis Haslem, and Ike Austin. All right, start the second team, Alex.
So you predicted it correctly. I'm going with the big here. I'm bringing back the Warden, Joel Anthony. I mean, he was just a productive damn player for them and for like winning teams. And I know that the big deal, the big move with Spo during the Big Three era was moving Bosh to the 5 and how it made them so efficient and winning championships. Joel Anthony, before that period, was manning that 5 position honorably, right? Like they were always looking for other bigs. Yes, Joel Anthony wasn't perfect. He can't give you buckets, as the kids say. But man, could he blitz that pick and roll? Man, could he protect the paint? And man, you talk about number 1 in our hearts. That's Joel Anthony. The Warden is the backup 5 here.
Glad you caught that.
I'm with you. In fact, I think you could have gone first team with him actually because of the longevity. But I understand it, Greg, because I think that first team needs a little more offense. Bowen and Carter, Bowen and Carter in the backcourt with Haslem at the 4. I think the one thing that you don't really get with undrafted players a lot of times, and that's why I'm definitely going to put this guy in the second team, and you could have made a case for the first team. You don't typically get a ton of offense. So I'm putting Kendrick Nunn on the second team. I think he's earned at least that at this stage, and I think there will be some who will say I should have put him ahead of Anthony Carter. But again, Anthony Carter did it in the postseason. Kendrick did not last year. And so a little bit more time here, but also Anthony Carter was never capable of putting up 20 at any stage. So I'm going to go with Nunn on the second team kind of as a 6th man, but I'm actually going to have him play more of the minutes than AC did. So we've got second team right now. Anthony, we've got Nunn, and this is going to be tough to fill out. There's a few players here for these wing spots and these guard spots that might make sense here. Who are you going with?
Well, there's no damn way that we're doing this exercise and not including Keith Askins. So he's making one of these 2 teams, and that's the end of that discussion. He is the small forward on the second team. And if not, he will punch you right in the face as he did. Was it Dwayne Farrell that he got?
Yeah,
there was somebody, I can't remember exactly if it was him or someone else, but that Atlanta series I'll never forget when he back when fighting used to happen.
I think he's going to end up being your small ball 4 on the second team, actually, because I don't really see a whole bunch of other 4. Just for clarity, because people are going to ask, Grant Long was drafted, right?
Yes,
right. I'm pretty double check on that because I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, because I want to say Clemson, but bear with me here.
No, it wasn't Clemson, but I believe it's pre Riley. We've had Grant on the pod, by the way, so we got to make sure we check this out. But I think it was because it was more than 2 rounds.
Eastern Michigan, yes. So he was in the 1988 draft, round 2, pick 33.
Okay, so he was in the second round. The great Sylvester Gray was all there. There were more rounds then too. So there's other guys who might have been undrafted. They weren't undrafted. All right, so we got 2 spots left on this team. We've got Anthony. We got the Warden. We've got K Nunn and we've got Keith, who definitely has to be on this team somewhere. Still some good names on the list, Alex. Who are you going with?
I'm going with Sean Leonard. I thought that's who Leif was gonna go with because you guys were going with the offense stuff, and Leif I should have known, just went with the culture pick. I'm gonna go with the shooter here. I know that was before my time, but I know about Vashawn Leonard. You know, I played with him enough times in NBA Live 05 and 06 when he was a Nuggets player, not a Heat player. I know the man could shoot, and I know he was a damn good shooter here. I think he deserves to be in that spot, and he was a pretty good shooter for his whole career.
We always hear all the fun stories about like the Duncan Robinson workouts and the Bam Adebayo workouts where he was, cursing at the staff and just all that fun stuff that you hear after the fact. I'll never forget when Vashawn Leonard worked out. I forget the number, but it was something crazy. Like he hit 115 threes consecutively and barely hit the net on any of them. And he was sold and signed in Miami. And next thing you know, he was starting.
Well, hold on one second though. Double check this. Are you sure Vashawn was not drafted by another team? Make sure you check that out. He may be ineligible. I know we put him on the thread, so we kind of threw Alex off. So this is not Alex's fault.
Round two,
he was drafted.
Pick 46.
He was drafted. I thought so. I thought so. Out of Minnesota. Okay. No, but I'm not going to blame Alex for that one because we put him on there. But the more I thought about it, and this may create a spot, Alex, for a recent Heat legend, a certain bumpy individual. Are you going there? You going to go with Magruder?
You're going to make me choose between those two?
Or are you going to go with Malik Allen? That's another name that's up there. Also on the coaching staff. There could be a Mike James in here. Not the one who's playing for the Nets right now, but one that the Heat picked up basically in a summer league that Ed Pinckney was running in North Miami. And any of these names are available, but Vashawn Leonard is no longer, he's not eligible. He was drafted before the Heat picked him up.
And you guys really set me up here.
No, I didn't do it on purpose, but it triggered. I don't know.
My funny name, Liddell Eccles. He was also picked in the second round.
Liddell Eccles was, no, Liddell Eccles was a draft pick. You threw that one out to me. I was no, not that one. And Whiteside was drafted, by the way. Right? Whiteside was drafted.
Yep.
Please, let's not talk about him.
I'm just saying he was drafted. You can't. I mean, we have to consider
he was drafted,
him, but he was drafted. He was
Sure.
drafted, so he doesn't count. Okay, go ahead, Alex. Who are we filling this team out with? We got a second team with Anthony Askins and God. We've got some lockdown teams here, right?
Oh yeah, this is very culture lineups. Starters, bench. You got culture heavy lineups there. I guess now with the crop that I've got left there, and this is a tough one. I'm gonna go with Tyler Johnson, man. Bumpy Johnson. Yeah. I think he, you got to give it to him and his agent for securing that deal, poisoning the Heat. But he was a good player, man. He was a nice two-way player. Hey, there you go. But he was a top 7 player, in the rotation, top 8 player for years and years. Sometimes would start and was a solid starter. He could do a little bit of everything. I don't think he's as good right now in Brooklyn. I honestly think he was at his best here, and him and James Johnson had that connection. I know they're still great friends. And he was just good to me, just a damn good player to have. The problem was they just didn't have any first or second or third option at the time, but he would have been a nice guy to have on a team that was contending at that time.
Yeah, I think he definitely deserves it. You can put him in the backcourt with Nunn. I think they're kind of interchangeable, and actually would probably play pretty well together. All right,
Rafer Alston get drafted? Sorry.
Check it. But here, before we do, because we got one name, the three of us are going to pick it together. Before we do, I want to tell you about PrizePicks.com. Make sure I think he did. Make sure you use that code 5 at PrizePicks.com. Use the code 5. I lost tonight because Jimmy got sat in the fourth quarter. I should have predicted that. I went over 4 assists or 4.5 assists, and he ended up having 4. So I ended up losing there, but I did get the Curry part right. I didn't think he'd get to 35 points because I didn't think he'd play enough. But anyway, go to prizepicks.com, use the code 5. You can play any sport. You can pair athletes from different teams together, athletes from different sports together. You go over, you go under their fantasy projections. You can play single stats. It's a hell of a lot of fun. Every night I get an email and there's 4 new people who've signed up for this thing through our code 5 because you get that bonus through us. So make sure you check it out. Just you got some time on a Sunday. Prizepicks.com. Play around with the app. Decide if you want to deposit $20, and you definitely will end up playing it regularly. So again, prizepicks.com. Use the code 5. All right, we got one spot left. What did you guys find about Rafer? Drafted?
Rafer Austin was drafted.
Doesn't count.
Doesn't count. All right, so here's what we got. We got one spot left. All right, we got to fill out this team. We're a little short on bigs. The only other big that would come to mind to me is Malik Allen, and with all due respect, I don't know that I'm going there.
Earl Barron, baby.
Earl Barron, Dark Nowitzki. He was the one that
wow.
he was. That's what they called him in practice because he was the guy who had to model himself after Dirk so that UD could get the reps against somebody who resembled Dirk in some way. Earl, really nice guy. I don't know that I would put him on this team. I'm down to 3 choices. Mike James, we don't really need a point guard, but Mike had some productivity here with Miami. Not on very good teams, but he had some productivity. Derrick Jones Jr., because we really don't have a 4.
Has the hardware.
On the second team. He does. Or
Dunk
Rodney
contest
Magruder.
hardware.
I'm going to make you choose between the Pitbull, Rodney Magruder, and airplane mode. Okay?
DJJ all day. We
I
got
thought
enough
Leif was in the same
culture.
Malik Allen.
You say Malik Allen?
No, I thought Leif was in the same Malik Allen.
Alex, who you go with? DJJ or Rodney?
DJJ. I like dunks, and he won a trophy. What can I say?
I'm going with Rodney. I think Rodney's being disparaged because our friend and former co-host Alf didn't like him playing 35 minutes a game. But I mean, the reality is Rodney Magruder was a damn good player for them on a 30-11 team, right? Like in terms of overall contribution, could you not argue that Magruder made more of a contribution than DJJ did?
Yeah, I mean, everyone thought he was going to get 4 years, $50 million.
Right. I mean, on this team, again, looking at this team, we don't have enough scoring on this team, by the way. I mean, who's going to lead this team in scoring? Kendrick, right? Off the bench?
Yeah. I mean, I think we're going to have an honorary member of the team. And that's, like I said, Max Strus. He'll light it up for us.
He's on the 2-way. Back to undrafted status. So we've got Strus. So here's our teams. Ike Austin, Udonis Haslem, Duncan Robinson. He's going to get off a lot of shots with this group. Bruce Bowen, Anthony Carter, second team, Joel Anthony, Keith Askins, Kendrick Nunn, Tyler Johnson, and you guys are going with it's fine. You guys win. It's 2-1. You're going with DJJ. I would have put Rodney on the team. Poor Rodney.
Hey, there's 12 spots on the roster. So Rodney and Max Strus.
And Max Strus.
There's our 12.
And in 2016 and 17, Pat Riley would have given them all 4 for 50. All right, have a good night. Check out our sponsors, F45 in Cooper City. Okay, in Cooper City. Come work out with us unless you're scared. PrizePicks.com. Use the code 5. Manscaped.com. Use the code 5RSN. Thanks for sticking around with us tonight. We'll be back tomorrow.
Thank you for listening to the 5 on the Floor on the 5 Regional Sports Network.